We want to welcome everybody that has joined today, and we're looking forward to gaining knowledge on what Jessica has to share today. She's got a lot of experience in recruiting, working at Robert Half. We're thrilled to have her, and just assist you in that job search that that at times it just seems like so difficult. And my name is Cheryl Carr. I work in career services at Walsh College, and I'm one of the advisors there. If you need assistance with anything relating to your job search as a student, alum, a community college student, please contact us. I've also want to introduce Katie Molesky, our Director of Career Services. If you want to go ahead, Katie, and introduce yourself.
Sure. So, yep, I'm Katie. I'm the Director of Career Services here at Walsh. I've been here a little over a year. Some of you may see me elsewhere, so I also teach over at Walsh. So anyone who is looking to improve their Microsoft Office skills, I do teach that course. So, if I haven't seen you, hopefully I will. But I've been here for about a year. So looking forward to this presentation and hopefully catching up with some of you in the future.
Absolutely. All right, I'll go ahead. And Jessica, you want to get going and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and share this information.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. Happy Wednesday, everybody. My name is Jessica Parker, and I'm the branch director here at Robert Half. So our main theme of today is building an authentic personal brand for your job search. And like I said, Jessica Parker, I've been with Robert Half now for 10 years. And previously, prior to this, I actually graduated with my degree in accounting. So very familiar. I've been in your shoes. And my brain doesn't seem like that long ago, but 10 to 11 years ago now. And for those of you that are not familiar with Robert Half, we're a worldwide organization, and what we do is we specialize in the placement of accounting, finance, IT, legal, creative, human resources, administrative professionals on a contract to hire, as well as direct hire basis. So we're a really great additional resource for you in your job search. And what I do each and every day is partner with folks like you who are actively looking for their next step in their career or looking to jumpstart their career, right? So these are things that I'm very passionate about, and I'm hoping that you guys find the presentation beneficial today. And if you ever have any questions, just let us know. So like I mentioned, today the theme is building your own personal brand. So personal branding is more important than ever for job seekers, regardless of where you're at in your career. You improve your chances of landing your first job or your next great job when you know how to market yourself to potential employers. So basically, I think everyone's trying to answer this question, right? What sets you apart from other applicants, and what value will you bring to their team? So building a compelling, consistent personal brand makes it easier for hiring managers to see the answers to those questions and gauge whether you'd be a good fit for the position or not. So branding really helps set the tone. So branding is something, for example, car manufacturers use to differentiate the vehicles they sell. For example, there's all-wheel drive, so performance and reliability, where other vehicles get stuck in the mud or snow. Or something like a Kia or Hyundai, value for the money and an above average warranty. Hybrid or electric cars, efficient, innovative, and forward looking, as well as luxury cars. High quality with an equally high price tag. I have a few of those cars on my dream list, maybe eventually in the future. But these are just some very general examples. But just as different consumers gravitate towards different types of cars, different managers look for different things in different candidates. So by building your personal brand, you'll attract the types of employers who value the type of employee you are and what you can bring to their organization. So where we're going to start is your value proposition. Your value proposition is the set of skills, personal traits, work history, and life experiences that make you a strong candidate. Basically, it's the entire package of who you are. So where we're going to get started is on building your personal brand. So start by creating a one-page brief about yourself, a targeted message based on your personal value proposition. And this isn't something like these are just notes that you'll kind of create for yourself, because then what you're going to do is you're going to take the notes that you make here to create your resume, to create your LinkedIn profile, and make sure that everything's cohesive. So I just want to put that out there, that this is kind of just a jumping point, a brainstorming session, I guess. So what you'll do is make a list of your skills and area of expertise. So for example, these are your technical abilities like bookkeeping, graphic design, things like that. You'll also include the software and platforms you're proficient in, or the degrees and certificates you have, leadership roles, languages you speak, etc. Right? Things that we always think about on our resume. Next, add the personal traits and life experiences that make up who you are. So, for example, have you lived in another country? Are you a veteran, or do you serve in the National Guard? If you're comfortable doing so, mention your ethnicity, religious background, disability status, or LGBTQ identity would be an asset for the employer, especially in today's society. And then also, don't forget to, your top personal traits. So focus on the ones that are assets in your profession. So if you're in customer service, you want to mention how you're empathetic and how you have strong communication skills. And then if you're a bookkeeper, obviously your attention to detail, right? Bookkeeping, accounting, that's the number one thing. And then if you're in marketing or HR, your flexibility and ability to multitask. So soft skills. And then finally, again, because this is just a brainstorming session, you're writing this down, you're not sending this to anybody. When you're done kind of just listing all of your traits, you'll want to circle 5 to 10 of the strongest qualities that you would bring to a company as an employee. And I know I talk really fast, so if anybody needs me to slow down or anything like that, please just let me know.
No, I just want to mention, I love this idea before they even start writing their resume, and brainstorm and really think this through. I think this is such an important part of the whole process.
Yeah, because I think sometimes, myself included, before I started here, I just thought of, okay, they only care about my work history, right? But that's not entirely the case. There's so much more to your resume than just what you did on the job, right? So definitely I'll give you some additional tips in terms of creating that resume. So next is, your priority of communication. So listing the top 3 things you want to get across on your resume. Keep them short and simple, 10 words or fewer for each item. So for example, if you excel at finding solutions to tricky problems, you're creative and generate new ideas, and you know how to lead a high-performing team. Short and sweet, right? These are the top qualities of your personal brand, with your most impressive or compelling quality at the number 1 spots. So this will kind of lead you into overall making your summary statement. So the summary statement has kind of replaced, the objective statement, right? It's very rare now when I see the objective. It's more called summary statement, and I'll get there, in just a quick minute. But yeah, I know for me, when I was creating a resume, I think that was my hardest part is, what should I put at the top of my resume, right? Sometimes it can make or break what an employer thinks about you. So what we say here at Robert Half is, if you're struggling with that specific portion of the exercise of your resume, imagine that you're in an elevator with the VP of the company that you really want to work for, your dream company. What's the most important impression that you'd want to leave with them? Your keen understanding of a customer base, a track record of effective collaborations, or that you have niche skills, right? Because again, and I am guilty of this as well, because I review resumes each and every day. Truthfully, we only review a resume for like 25 to 30 seconds in the initial beginning part, right? So you really have to make your resume stand out compared to the rest. And again, more tips to come on that piece. So once you've kind of done that exercise, right, you wrote it down on a piece of paper, now we can get to kind of building your resume, cover letter, things like that, right? And now more than ever, people talk about an elevator pitch. So when you're at a career fair, right, you really only have 30 seconds, maybe to a minute to kind of sell yourself. So the overall theme of today is your personal brand, and you want to make sure that your resume, cover letter, elevator pitch, social media, website is more for like those technical type of roles, so graphic design, things like that. So I'm not as worried about that. But at least the cover letter, elevator pitch, and social media, those things are kind of cohesive in nature, right? So think about how your personal value proposition translates into the look, feel, and content of your brand. So again, consistency is key in all of these things. So as far as brand elements go, the resume is at the top. That's what everyone thinks of, right? Is when you're applying for a job, or, when you're trying to find your next role, it's your resume. It's the essential part of any job search. In many cases, your resume is the prospective employer's introduction to you and to your personal brand. So it must look good and contain solid, clear information. So here's the elements of a great resume. Again, kind of what I was talking about earlier is the summary statement. So the top of the page is valuable real estate for sharing your personal brand. This is where you highlight your top qualities and who you are. Again, your 30-second elevator pitch on paper. So in a few lines, you'll want to summarize your skills, experience, background, and personal traits that are relevant for this position. And again, just as a reminder, the summary has replaced the objective statement, which is outdated. It's just better for everybody to put summary statement or summary instead of objective. 2, results-driven experience. So remember in that prior exercise when you were writing down your top 3 qualities, the experience section is where you back up your claims of problem solving, creativity, leadership, etc. So take a results-driven approach to describe your duties and accomplishments. That means including meaningful information about how you added value to a project or to the company, and list quantifiable results. So for example, don't simply write oversaw project management. A better statement would be project manager for a 6-person team responsible for launching a new product that netted $2 million during its first quarter. This is what I tell everybody all the time, especially when you're in the business space, or especially when you're in the accounting and finance space. If you ever saved a company time or money or collected on any type of money, right? You always want to put dollars in your resume. You always want to put numbers, right? Think about it. You're in the accounting profession. That's all they care about. How are you saving me time and money? And what's that dollar value behind it? So anywhere possible, you always want to list that.
In any profession too, right? I mean, any resume, not only accounting and finance, putting those numbers and metrics really makes it stronger.
Oh, 1,000%, because it helps stick you out from others as well. Accounting and finance is my niche, right? So that's why I always say that. But to Cheryl's point, I think any career, dollars, cents, numbers sticks you out above the rest.
Yeah. And I tell people the performance evaluations are a good place to look for those sometimes.
Yes, 1,000%. Because when we're sitting down and creating our resume, I feel like sometimes you forget about all the great things that you did. So I think that's why that brainstorming session is really great, because you can write down your notes before you kind of create your resume, and then you have to go back and edit it. So that's why I think that brainstorming page is really helpful on the front end. And then, of course, there's always that section for soft skills, right? So again, back to our brainstorming session, you want to go back to your list of personal traits and check them against what the job posting is looking for. So I know this isn't always what everyone's super excited about, but they do say, and it is true, that you should technically tailor your resume to every job posting that you're applying for. It is more important now than ever, because most employers, they either use Career Builder or ZipRecruiter or some type of online platform to screen resumes, right? So if there is a keyword in their job posting, so say for, an accountant, it says general ledger, you'll want to make sure that your resume says general ledger at least 3 times, right? Because if the posting says general ledger and your resume doesn't say general ledger at all, your resume more than likely is not even getting to the line manager at all or that specific manager at all. So you really have to take time in terms of reading the specific postings and tailoring your resume. Okay. So it's going to take you more time, but truth be told, I always tell people quality over quantity, right? So again, read the job postings, especially in today's market when we're all depending on technology and AI. Your resume might not actually ever get to that manager. So please read those job postings and make it relevant. And then, of course, technical skills. So highlighting your software proficiency and technical abilities. I would say baseline now, most people should know Microsoft Office, right? So, obviously you'll put Microsoft Office in there. If you're in the accounting and finance space, if you're proficient within Microsoft Excel, A, you'll want to be honest in terms of your proficiency, but B, if you can do pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, and macros, please list it on your resume because that's the number one question most of the time that accounting managers or controllers are going to ask you regardless. And who knows, that could get your resume farther than before, right? So be specific in terms of your experience. And I think too, sometimes with a lot of resumes that we see, it will have like a technical skills section in their resume of all the softwares that they used, but then in all of the, like, say you worked at ABC company, right? And then DBE company next. There's no software under each company. Hiring managers want to know where you use that software last. So make sure under all of your jobs, you're listing what software system that you used. Because sometimes hiring managers can be a little bit picky and they want, like, for example, if you've used SAP, if you've used it more than 5 years ago, they might not be interested or they might be flexible. Either way, it has to be shown on your resume under the specific job that you used it at. And then noteworthy qualities. So, what's different about you compared to the average candidate? So, for example, if a multinational company has presence in Latin America, your proficiency in written and spoken Spanish could be a huge asset. So again, this is where it's important where you're not just applying for the sake of applying. You really do need to read the job posting in great detail so that way you can tailor your resume. And sometimes you can even take that extra step of not only are you reviewing the job posting, you're going to the company website, maybe just spending 3 to 5 minutes to see what they do to then tailor your resume specific to what the company is looking for, right? Or the company values, to this point, if it's a multinational company in Latin America, right? How can you relate yourself to that? I think that's very important. I think that's what people forget. So at the end of the day, you might end up with 1,000 different versions of your resume, but that could probably bring you great success in your job search. And then keywords. Again, I can't reiterate this enough. Tailoring your resume for every job with those specific keywords that are in the job posting. And then resume format. So this is actually really great for, folks who are in school and maybe haven't started their career yet, or folks that are changing their careers. There's different resume formats that you could do and tailor it to where you're at in your career, right? So there's 3 types of resumes. So the first is chronological, which focuses on your work experience and lists jobs and positions in reverse chronological order. So meaning, like, for example, I've been at Robert Half for 10 years now. It has my name, my address, then it would go right into my work history and it would say Robert Half, 2015 to present, right? And then before that, when I worked at Dow Corning, it would have Dow underneath there with those specific times. So that's what it means, is my work experience is first. This is great for somebody who has been consistently working with little to no gaps in employment, right? Because you want your work experience first. The next is functional. So it's a resume that leads with a list of skills and professional accomplishments, followed by work history and education. It's ideal for professionals with extensive freelance or contract experience rather than a series of full-time positions. And if you're changing careers, this format works well because it allows you to highlight transferable skills rather than your lack of industry specific experience. And it's also good for candidates with employment gaps, excessive job hopping, and lack of experience. And then hybrid. So a hybrid format is a combination of functional and chronological. The first section usually highlights skills and qualifications you possess, and then it goes into the work history section. 9 times out of 10, most people have a hybrid format. What I see all the time is name, address, your summary statement, and then either your skills, your education, and then work, right? So I would say, honestly, either they're all great. I would just say the most important thing is you want to have your most recent work experience at the top, right? I think sometimes people get confused and they put like their oldest job first. And again, when hiring managers are only looking at your resume for 25 or 30 seconds, if the first date that they see is 5 or 6 years ago, they're going to question, oh my gosh, has this person been employed under the last 5 or 6 years? So just make sure that your most recent job is the first job on there. Oh, sorry, I skipped these. But again, hybrid, it's great for people starting their career and then senior level job seekers as well. So again, there's 3 different types of resumes, but to be specific, there's actually 4 because LinkedIn is an online resume, right? In fact, it should actually probably be number 1, as many recruiters and hiring managers will search for you there, sometimes without even looking at the resume that you submitted. Some companies today even prefer that you just submit your LinkedIn profile in lieu of traditional application materials, right? Reason being it's a hybrid resume, right? So kind of what we just talked about, there's an about section and a summary statement. And then there are some optional sections, like the featured section is like your best of your accomplishments and your experience. The activity section is your level of of engagement. And then it has your experience in reverse chronological order, followed by education and skills. So who should use LinkedIn? Every person. Even if a potential employer doesn't ask for your LinkedIn profile, include it somewhere on your resume or your cover letter. Regardless, I can tell you right now, if before I meet somebody, 9 times out of 10, I'm looking for their LinkedIn profile. Because I always like to be able to put a face to a name before I even speak with them anyways. But I feel like sometimes a LinkedIn profile can speak more about somebody than an actual resume can. So you are, missing out on a lot if your LinkedIn profile, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, and if you're not active on your LinkedIn profile. I think the most important things on your LinkedIn profile is you need to make sure that you have a picture. Need to make sure that you have a picture. And of course, an appropriate picture. You don't need to have, as much as we all would love to have one, you don't have to spend money to, get like that professional photo done. Mine is somebody in my office. I was like, hey, when I first started here, so my picture's old. I do need to update it, I will say. But I just had them I had a nice backdrop and just had them take a picture of me, right? In a blazer. Okay. So it could just be something as simple as that. I would prefer you not to use a picture that you have to crop somebody else out of because that's pretty obvious what you did. But I mean, as long as it's appropriate at the end of the day, that's fine. But obviously professional is best and you do not have to spend money on it. It's free. But again, must have a picture.
Can I put a plug in for the
Yeah.
September 11th for our career fair? We're going to be taking pictures with our free LinkedIn photo booth. And
I love it.
Yeah, it's great for employers that can get it. Anybody that attends can get that and done, and it's really a nice little benefit there. So please do that. And I did want to ask you if you're I don't know if you're gonna get to this, how important the about section is in your LinkedIn profile.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's next up on here, but I was actually just going to get into there anyway. But it's, a lot of people now are starting to put an about me section in there. I know I recently kind of added one. I think it's incredibly important if you are in the job search, if you're in the job market and looking, right? If you've been at your company for 10 years and you're not anticipating leaving, okay, you could probably do without it. But if you're in the job market, I 1000% suggest you putting an about me section, because to me, it's very similar to your summary statement as well. And it just shows that you really put in the extra, time and effort into, really creating your LinkedIn profile. And again, to me, your LinkedIn profile speaks more about you than what your resume does. And of course, keep it professional. It could be a mix of obviously a brief description of your work experience, as well as, like I mentioned earlier, your soft skills, what your life experiences for you can bring to the table in your next job. So any questions on that part? Okay.
It's usually from first person too, correct?
Yes.
You
Yep.
wanna, make it a little
First
less
person.
formal.
Yes. Yep. First person. And then a final word on resume best practices. I hope everyone knows this, but if not, just revisiting, rewriting and editing it. The first draft of anything is important, books, reports, resumes, cover letters, but it shouldn't be the final draft. So reworking your resume to make sure that it reflects your personal brand and that it's clear, concise, compelling, and error-free. Even one mistake can hurt your chances of getting an interview. And I know that more than anyone, because again, I deal with accounting managers and controllers, and I think anywhere in the business space, right? Those types of managers, if there's even one spelling mistake, I've had managers tell me, well, if they don't care enough to fix the one mistake on their resume or recognize that, then what does that mean for them when they're working for me? They don't have attention to detail, right? So you really need to spend that extra time being really nitpicky and reviewing everything. And make sure that you're spelling software right, because for those of us who have experience within QuickBooks, QuickBooks is one word and the B is capitalized. And if you don't have that software spelled correctly, again, managers will not move forward with you. So that's how important it is. So you've applied for a job with your compelling and attractive resume. Now what, right? That's the biggest question. Sometimes when you submit your resume, you feel like, wow, I kind of just went into a black hole and I don't know if I'm going to hear back, right? So you could just sit back and wait, but a better approach would be to actually reach out to the potential employer. I think a lot of people are afraid of that, and don't be, right? So like it says here, 100% of HR managers polled by Robert Half said that job seekers should contact the employer within 2 weeks of submitting their resume or their application materials. And no, you will not be bothering the hiring manager. By following up, you're demonstrating your interest, enthusiasm, and initiative. And for somebody who recruits each and every day, I would much rather prefer the person who reaches out to me compared to me having to chase somebody, because if they're reaching out to me, it shows that A, they're still available, B, they're very interested, and C, they want to make themselves known, right? So don't be afraid to reach back out.
Would you say through LinkedIn is the most practical way to do that?
Yes, a few different. So, and I'll give you some tips on how to do that. So, to your point, Cheryl, most managers' inboxes are overflowing. So get right to the point. Like, don't be wordy, keep it brief, keep it short. You could do this a few different ways. You could do it through email. You could do it through LinkedIn, right? I think those are the two big ways. You can also try to call them as well. I will say calling right now with, this hybrid, environment we're in, sometimes getting somebody on the phone isn't as easy as it used to be, but definitely through email, through LinkedIn. So in the subject line, put down something like resume follow-up or project assistant job candidate, right? Briefly recap your qualifications and why you're the right person for the job, and close by stating your interest in setting up an interview, or, why you think, the interview went well. I think I could be a good match, right? I'm looking forward to hearing from you if this is after the interview. It also helps to include the link to your LinkedIn profile and or attach a PDF of your resume. So that way they don't have to look at your name, then go into their system to find your resume. Or who knows, if your resume didn't have the keywords, they might not have even received it, to be honest with you. Or they can just go right to your LinkedIn and they can learn more about you in an easy manner. And then, wait at least a week. So again, you waited 2 weeks until after you applied to reach out the first time. The next time is wait another week before reaching out again. Enthusiasm is good, and an extra point of contact can help you stand out from other applicants, but the last thing that you want to do is annoy them. So just as a refresher, say you applied online to a position, don't reach out again until 2 weeks after the initial apply date. And then after that, wait another week if you don't hear anything. And right now, especially if you're applying to a remote role, I mean, again, they're getting thousands and thousands of applicants, right? If it's local, not as many, but they have a lot of profiles and things to sift through, right? So you will stand out above the rest if you do reach out. So don't be nervous and afraid to. So as you mentioned earlier, LinkedIn is a must because it's several different things: an online resume, a vast pool of active and passive candidates, an easy way to network and grow your professional connections. But it's not the only type of social media you can use, right? So many employers and professionals in your field have a presence on several different platforms, which means it would benefit your job search and strengthen your business acumen on them too. So another one is Facebook. So I'm going to give you some tips overall, not only in terms of looking for a job search, but also, being appropriate, I guess, on social media, right? So I would say in the business space, if you're looking for accounting, finance, IT, legal, LinkedIn's going to be your number one. If you're looking for more of like your marketing creative, sometimes Facebook, sometimes Instagram, right? For those types of roles, you have to use that. I would say 98% of the time on the business side, you're good with LinkedIn. Sorry, I would just say that. Where Facebook is good is that it could benefit you in terms of networking. So you can join groups such as Young Professionals Network, Paralegal Network, niche groups in your specific line of field. So that way you can network, right? And when you network, you never know who you're going to run into, right? So I would say first, Facebook. You're not using it as much of like, okay, applying for positions and building a professional profile. It's more of just using it for networking. But again, keep in mind your Facebook, then, if you're going to use it for that purpose, needs to be professional. Okay. Sometimes people create two separate profiles, one for, personal use and then one for professional use, right? So that is something that you consider doing. And again, more tips to come in terms of social media guidelines. But I just didn't want you guys to think that you have to use Facebook for applying for jobs. It's more of networking. Okay. And I would say the rest, for the rest of these ones too, like Instagram. So it's a good platform for you if your field is visual. So again, graphic design, things that are kind of outside of my niche a little bit. So again, don't stress. More on the business side, it's mainly just LinkedIn. They're also going to talk about YouTube. I always tell my folks too, if you're just starting out and you're applying to positions and maybe you don't know fully what an accounts payable person does day to day, watch some YouTube videos. You could just easily do a search of what does an accounts payable person do day to day, or what does an IT person do day to day. I mean, just to learn. But again, a lot of these are more for those like your marketing creative outside of the box thinker roles compared to your like accounting, finance, IT, legal side of things. So there's Twitter, TikTok, and then Snapchat and Reddit. But honestly, again, I'm just going to reiterate, LinkedIn for me and for most people is number one. So treat social media as a professional conversation. So actively participate. And again, I would relate this more towards LinkedIn. So share your industry thoughts and expertise, post updates on your job search, and post in a way that highlights your communication skills, right? And give as much or more than you're taking. So engage with other people's content in a respectful way, especially on LinkedIn, because what happens is if I comment on someone's post on LinkedIn, I'm also showing up on different people's like feeds and they don't know, we're not connected. They could be like, oh, who's Jessica Parker at Robert Half? I'd love to connect with her. So that's why engaging with other people's content in a respectful way is super important. Follow and comment on industry specific blogs. Become a regular on relevant message boards, cheer your connections when they accomplish a goal or celebrate an anniversary, and share posts with others. And then also emphasize quality over quantity. Apply this to the content you post and the friends and connections you have. So since it would be a full-time job to have a serious presence on all of the various sites that I've mentioned, again, your effort should be more on LinkedIn. So really just focus more on LinkedIn, maybe one other, but really LinkedIn is it. Post with the appropriate frequency and content for each social media type. And to keep your private life private, consider creating a public facing profile for your professional life and professional interests. Trust me when I say this, employers check job applicants' social media sites, so be sure they come off as professional. Okay. Many times when I was looking for a job, I Googled my name every other day, especially because I have a very common name. I just wanted to see what was coming up. And if you're somebody like me who does have a common name, people will filter down by more of a local, like they'll put Jessica Parker in front of my resume or LinkedIn, it says Macomb. They're going to type in Jessica Parker Macomb, right? So you just want to make sure that everything is appropriate when you're looking for jobs on every social media site, because your Facebook page does come up, right? You can hide your pictures, you can make your profiles private, do what you have to do, but social media, it's great, but then also if it's not appropriate, it can really tarnish, your reputation a little bit.
Are you able to get on the social media, like a Facebook, when people say, oh, it's a private, I have it on a private setting. Can employees
Yeah.
still get on that? I've heard they can. I just want to confirm that.
Yeah. So like, for example, for me and I, on my personal pages, just because I'm in the job that I'm in, I make sure that everything's private. But if you type in my name, you could still see my name in my picture, like my profile picture, as well as my cover photo. It might say where I live, but you can't see my friends. You can't see anything I post or anything like that. So regardless of your privacy settings, you still always want to make sure, especially on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that your profile picture and your cover photos are appropriate, right? I get it. It's your personal life, but you just want to make sure that you're not doing anything out of bounds in those pictures. So 71% of hiring decision makers agree that looking at candidates' social media profiles is an effective way to evaluate applicants. And again, it's not just LinkedIn. They are looking at Facebook from a social aspect as well. So what this means is that curating your personal brand should be a key part of your job search before you even send out a single application. And employers look for red flags. These include offensive comments, patterns of violence or antisocial behavior, explicit materials, and anything illegal. And to keep the job you've worked so hard to get, make sure to maintain the appropriateness of those social media profiles for work. So if you find a job and you're very happy, I would still keep it appropriate because you never know. So controlling your online presence. So again, this is just going to reiterate a few things. Conduct a search on yourself. Like I said, Google yourself. That is the most important thing. And if there's any negative or inappropriate items, please remove them. Please untag yourself from them and please hide them. Oops. And then be prepared to explain any negative content. So if somebody sees anything, right, and they bring it to your attention, employers might discuss it. Honestly, very little. But if that were the case, just be prepared. And I'm honestly going to skip over the personal website, just because to me, and I think most of the people on this call, I don't think that it's as relevant. It's really more again in that graphic design, if you're a photographer, videographer, things like that. But in that space, that's important. But day to day, it's not as important, I think, for the people here. I'm going to skip right over that. Professional networking. So, like we said, with LinkedIn, online interactions are vital, but let's not forget, so are in-person events, right? And networking. Participate in professional networks to build and nurture your network. So join the local chapter of a national industry association. So like, for example, there is a women's association here with accounting leaders, and I used to be a part of that as well. So again, it's specific to my industry and my background. And you can just Google like professional networking, opportunities near me. look for less formal and often local networking groups that cater to your interest. Again, Facebook, this is where it comes in from. So finding those groups of your interest. And then you can also initiate your own events. So set up a free group to stay in touch with the people you meet at networking events, or organize a monthly coffee date with a small group of fellow job seekers to share tactics, swap leads, and keep each other motivated. And the trick is to staying in touch, right? So when you're building your network, stay in touch, whether it's a favorite professor or a coworker from a summer internship, and just making sure, of course, you're not being intrusive. But simple things you can do to keep in touch with existing contacts is connect on social media, LinkedIn, great one. Touch base regularly. And can you hear me? I feel like all of a sudden I got a notification about about my connection, so I want to make sure. So touch base regularly, like once a quarter, email occasionally, or do that coffee date like we had previously mentioned. Share useful leads or information. So pass along links to industry news, they would find interesting or inside information on job opportunities. And then ways to engage with new contacts. So follow up with them right away, at least within 2 days. So if you meet somebody at a professional networking event, follow up with them within the first 2 days. And if via email, make sure your email signature has your contact info, including your LinkedIn account, blog, and/or website. I would say for us, put in your LinkedIn account, and I always put my cell phone number, even in my professional emails. Let them know that you enjoyed the conversation and that you'd like to stay in touch. Mention something specific you discussed to help jog their memory, right? Because, for example, I've been an employer at career fairs. I talk to so many people in a day, right? So for me, if somebody remembered to bring something up in the conversation that we had in the email, that would mean a lot to me. And that's how I would also remember them. And then, as with existing contacts, share useful information with them and connect them with members of your professional circle as well. And then okay, I just want to make sure I'm not running over time. So if you ever need to stop me, sure, let me know.
No, you're good. You still got 15 minutes left, but I did want to ask just other areas to network. I know
Yeah.
you mentioned professional associations. What about like chambers of commerces, things like
Yeah.
that? Any other?
Yes. No, Chamber of Commerce is for sure. There's a lot of organizations. We used to be a part of the Oakland County one. It's been a while. So honestly, like I said, just Google, networking groups near me, and so many different options will come up. Somebody here that works for me, she's been with the company now since October. That's what she did. And now she's a part of like 3 different networking events, and because she's newer in her career, right? So she really wants to make herself known. So she just had an event last week. It was in Troy. But it was like cocktails with C-suite managers or something like that. It was really cool for her. So just Google it. And it really helps. Like, she was nervous before she went. And then afterwards, she's like, why was I nervous? That was really great. So I always tell people, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. If you ever feel comfortable, you want to switch up what you're doing, right? You always kind of want to push yourself a little bit. So the interview, right? So it all comes down to this: your resume, your LinkedIn profile. You did all the right things. So yay, you got the interview, right? So now this is the most nerve-wracking part for most people, is the interview. So if you handle yourself well during the interview, you'll be taking another step in your career ladder, right? So again, this is just something that I'm passionate about because I set up interviews each and every day. What you want to make sure that you do is research the company, right? So finding out everything you can about the company, such as their mission, corporate culture, and core values. So scour their website, LinkedIn company page, Facebook page, and Twitter feed. But definitely, if at the bare minimum, Googling to go to their website as well as LinkedIn pages, right? Search online for recent news articles. People love to be complimented. So if you're going to interview somebody somewhere and they, for the last 4 years, have been voted like one of the top best places to work, you definitely want to bring that up in the interview, right? People love to be complimented on their culture and all of their hard work. Privately ask your network if they have any insight about the company. And check reviews by employees on sites like Glassdoor and Fairy Godboss, which is an online community for women to find jobs, career advice, and support. This is what I always tell people though. Glassdoor is great, but don't read too much into it. It's good as a resource, but think about it. The only time most of us write a review is when we're really upset with the service, right? And one really disgruntled employee can really kind of just change those reviews, right? And maybe they just personally had a bad experience, but that's not normal in that organization, right? So don't read too much into the reviews. And if you are on someone's Glassdoor profile and there's a lot of negative reviews, I always say you should probably still do that interview because if anything, it's interview practice. Practice makes perfect, right? So if you go into it knowing like this might not be for me, okay, you don't have to go past the first round of the interview, but at least you're just getting more interview practice, right? So again, take everything you see on a Glassdoor page with a grain of salt. So do your homework, right? So use this research to answer some basic questions. What do they do? What do they excel in? What do they need to improve? What changes in the industry could bring challenges and how can your skills benefit them? So what I always tell people is reviewing their website. Obviously, if you have that similar industry experience, you want to speak on that, right? Or if you're newer in your career and maybe you don't have any experience at all, if you look at their core values, how do their core values align with your core values? And that's something that you could bring up in the interview, right? So again, that's why research is so important because you always want to make yourself seem relatable in the interview. Typical interview questions. So again, another part of being prepared is doing your research in terms of how you're going to answer some questions, right? So it helps to write down your answers, edit to improve them, practice saying them out loud, and be genuine. Hiring managers don't want to hear canned responses. So this is what I always tell my folks, right? The number one question most people get asked and they hate, and I even hate when I was asked it, is what is your biggest weakness, right? That is a trick question. They want to see how you're going to put yourself in a negative space, right? And I've heard some crazy answers. I've had people say, well, I tend to talk a lot, or I tend to be on my phone a lot. Okay, please don't ever say that. I love your honesty, but please don't say that. But you also don't want to say, well, I don't have any weaknesses, because we all do. That just means that you're not self-reflective. What I always tell people is you want to, show how you've, noticed a professional weakness and how you've overcome that said weakness. The easiest thing to do for me is to relate that to a software skill, right? So if you're in accounting or finance or really anywhere in the business space, right? I always tell people to say, I felt like my skills in Microsoft Excel weren't as strong as what I thought they should be, right? So after work or in my spare time, I watched YouTube videos regarding Excel and I did tutorials within Excel. And now I can do pivot tables and VLOOKUPs within Excel. That is so important because you recognized a weakness. This is what I did to overcome that said weakness. And now this is where I'm at. So that's a trick question. Everyone hates it. But if you do the right research and really prepare yourself to answer those questions, you'll be okay. And then harder questions. So again, the biggest weakness, and then have you overcome an issue at work? I think a lot of people, especially folks newer in their career, they really struggle with give me a time where, maybe you got into an argument with a coworker. Give me a time where, things like that. I think newer folks in their career get nervous because they don't have the experience to back themselves up, right? What I tell people is when I first started out, before I got into corporate life, I was a restaurant server for 6 years. Okay. So every time I answered that question, I brought it back to my restaurant experience. No one ever told me that was a bad thing to do. And actually everybody really liked my answers. So I would still answer that question with experience, and it doesn't have to be industry specific. You can use it from your retail job. You can use it from a personal standpoint as well, as long as you're answering the question. So I would say you always want to go into every interview prepared to answer, tell me about a time you got in a conflict with a coworker, or give me a time maybe you were stressed at work and how you overcame that, right? Honestly, you can just Google behavioral questions is what they call it, and then just write out some answers so that way you're prepared. And then where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's a trick question as well, because they want to see if you're going to say you're still going to be at their company. But how to overcome that and answer is you could say that you're loyal to companies that treat their workers and customers right and whose corporate values align with yours. And also for folks who are newer in their career, I used to say all the time, I'm really just looking to find a home in an organization that I can learn and grow with because it shows that I do want to stay somewhere and I want to make it my home. So that's a really great question to answer. And then why should we hire you? Again, that's a least favorite question for everybody. So talk about the proactive things you've done to improve your skills, focusing on the core attributes and top qualities of your personal brand. So again, bringing it back to your personal brand. It's a great opportunity to mention your accomplishments and how you can contribute to the bottom line of their organization. But above all else, be yourself. I do interviews each and every day. It's so hard, but please try not to be nervous because people can feel your energy. We can feel your nervousness. Okay. And of course, you want to sell yourself. There's a fine line between selling yourself and coming across as maybe a little bit too pushy, right? I think at the end of the day, if you're yourself, treat it as a conversation that you're having with a friend in a way, of course, appropriately, because you come across more as yourself that way compared to, you're talking to a manager, right? Be yourself. I love the interviews where I feel comfortable and I don't feel like this person's nervous. So try your best. And I'm sure you'll do great, right? So behavioral questions, kind of like I mentioned, there's the STAR method, which stands for situation, task, action, and results. This helps you break down your answers into when, where, what, and how, and to articulate the results without rambling. So similarly to what I said earlier, coming up with the situation, so giving context to your answer and set the stage for the story. Task, elaborating on the challenge and your role, so discussing your goal. Action, explain specific actions you took to handle the situation or how you overcame the situation. And then result, what was the outcome? So I think sometimes even this seems a little bit overcomplicated. Just remember, you want to come up with the situation or your weakness. You want to show them how you've worked on it, how you've overcome it, and then what your result is. So the idea that your answers will provide insight into your problem-solving skills, that's why they ask these types of questions. So let's see. Interviewing the interviewer. So I think the next few slides I kind of might skip over, only because I do this each and every day. But the last part of the interview for me is when they say, what questions do you have for us, right? You never want to ask questions, what are your hours? What's your dress code, right? Because those are basic questions that they will answer for you once you get the job. I say you never want to ask more than 2 or 3 questions because then that just seems like a lot. And you want your questions to come across as natural. Sometimes when people ask me questions, I'm like, oh, I could tell they were kind of like forced to ask me this question because they wanted to just check that box of, oh, I asked them a question. So overall, I think if you, come across as being yourself, it feels less that way. But a really great question to ask is, what are your goals for this position? Or what does a day-to-day look like in this role if they kind of haven't already talked about that in the interview, right? So those are 2 really good ones because it opens up the interviewer to do some talking compared to you just answering questions the entire time. You can also say, what do you like best about working for ABC company, right? Because again, their passion for the organization will come through as well. You want to ask questions that are going to provide value, right? If you're asking about hours and things like that, it's not adding value to the conversation, right? So for sure, definitely, what are your goals for this position? What does a day-to-day look like in this role? What do you like working or why do you like, not why do you like working for ABC company? It's what do you like best about working for ABC company? And then, at the end of the interview, you always want to thank them for their time, let them know that you're very interested in the opportunity. You feel like you have absolutely no problems picking up their systems or processes at all, and that you look forward to hearing from them, right? So again, just trying to be yourself. And then just some basic tips that I think everybody knows. But, if it's a video interview, you still need to dress up as if you were going out on site to the interview. Many times I will hear a hiring manager say, she was wearing a hoodie. And, you know, I just feel like, you know, maybe she didn't put forth the effort, to even meet with me. So, you know, and to dress up to meet with me. So why would I want to hire this person? Right. So dress up and look professional as if you were going out on site to the interview. And for the video interview, I would say you're going to want to join that meeting at least 5 minutes prior to the interview time. I advise 10 minutes early. Reason being is because, as we all know, in the world of technology, technology sometimes doesn't always work, right? So, you know, you want to make sure that your technology is good to go by logging in 10 minutes early. Okay. Um, and then again, for a video interview, make sure that whatever's in your background is appropriate. And make sure you're in a room with the door closed, so that way you have privacy and no loud noises. I once had somebody not get hired in because her dog barked right next to her for 15 straight minutes during the interview. So we all love our pets, but sometimes interviews, they're not meant for your pets. And then same thing when you're going in on site, obviously dress professionally. Bring multiple copies of your resume, because you want to make sure that every person that you're speaking with has a copy of your resume, as well as one for yourself, so you can quickly just glance down at the resume. But we have 5 minutes left, so I did just want to save some time, I guess, in case anybody has any questions, unless Cheryl, there was anything else that you wanted me to kind of like elaborate on.
Oh, I wanted to ask how important the thank you follow-up email
Yeah.
or note is.
I would say the thank you email is important, and I would say email or LinkedIn. I would say the notes, like as much as I love pen to paper, by the time that the note gets to them, they might have already made their decision by somebody else, right? So I would definitely send either an email or a LinkedIn message. And I would connect with them on LinkedIn personally, because even if you don't get the job with them right now, again, you're expanding your professional network, right? So say before the interview, you weren't already connected with them. What you could do is after the interview, go to connect with them on LinkedIn. And whenever you connect with somebody, it says add a personal note. I would always add a personal note and be like, thank you so much, Cheryl. It was great speaking with you today and meeting with you. I appreciate you setting aside time to speak with me. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Brevity is key in both situations, in both the email as well as the LinkedIn note.
And also for using a recruiter for the job search, I always
Yeah.
tell students and alum, use that as a piece of your job search. How important is that, especially for entry-level candidates?
Entry level, I think it's incredibly important. Reason being is because it's so funny. They'll say entry level accountant, but must have 5 years of experience. And it's like, where am I getting my 5 years then? So sometimes, especially when you're in your degree, in your career, right? If you're just applying online, it doesn't really, like I tell my clients, a resume doesn't tell a whole story, right? So your lack of experience in that instance could hurt you if you're just applying online. Whereas a recruiter or somebody like me, I'm having Teams meetings or Zoom meetings with my clients, and I'm showing their profiles on these meetings, but I'm not just talking about what's on their resume. I'm talking about their soft skills, your personality traits, your skill sets that might not be listed on the resume, right? So that's why it's important to also partner with a recruiter, because we're doing so much more for you in terms of speaking with the client and really kind of selling you to that client as well. I always tell people, if I'm you and I'm looking for work, I'm having my hands dipped in every pot possible, because I want to find the best job opportunities out there. So I'm doing my own search, but I'm also going to be working with recruiters. And I think the most important recruiters are the ones that are very specific to your industry, right? So of course, I'm going to pitch Robert Half because I work and love Robert Half. So Robert Half is great for those types of roles that I discussed earlier. But there's also, firms specific to engineering. And there's so many different firms out there that you'll want to reach out to specific to your industry.
You're an accounting student or an alumni. Do you want them to contact you, Jessica? You could put
Yeah.
your email in the chat if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the branch director out of our Troy office. So I manage a few different teams as well, but I specifically am in the accounting and finance space. But I would say you can reach out to me for any of the other roles that we fill as well, because I'll just connect you with one of the recruiters on that team. So again, just as a refresher, we do IT, legal, creative, accounting and finance, human resources, pretty much anything in that front office professional space is what we do. Yeah, I just stopped sharing my my thing, so that way.
Well, we only have about a minute left. I don't, if you have any questions, maybe they could email you their questions.
Yeah.
Could you put your email in the chat, would you mind doing that?
Yes, I can definitely do that. I'll put my email in the chat. And again, you can send me your resume or any questions that you have. I can definitely do that for you all.
Yeah, this has been a great informative presentation. It was fantastic. Thank you for sharing this.
Oh, good. No, I just appreciate you all having me. So thank you so much. And apparently I am not a Zoom expert. I was in presenter mode. So I just have to, I'll eventually put my email in the chat. I just have to get there because right now.
Yeah, we did record this session, so I will
Yeah.
be sending out the recording in the next few days, probably Friday or Monday, to be honest with you. And in that, I could include your email, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, perfect. And if I find it before then, I'll definitely put it in there as well.
Okay, but I wanted to thank you for presenting. Again, we'll be sending up a follow-up email on with the Zoom recording, and possibly the PowerPoint. I don't know if you could share that with.
Oh, yeah.
That would be great if you could send that to me. We'll send that as well.
Yep.
All that valuable information. So don't forget about our lunch and learns next week, Wednesday, Thursday, and those are to help prepare for the career fair September 11th. You'll be there, Jessica?
I think so. If not me, maybe somebody from my organization. I just have to take a peek.
Okay, September 11th, 4 to 6:30. And if you need individual help, feel free to contact myself or Career Services for assistance with anything at all pertaining to your job search. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you again, Jessica. So
Thank you.
I'll close this off.